Hi friends! Today we're going to be doing the ratings and reviews tag. I'll go ahead and link the original creator of this tag down below. In my typical fashion, I am actually not going to tag anybody because I just don't. I never do. So let's just jump right into it, okay? So the very first question is, how do you know you've just finished a good book? Is it a thinking or a feeling response? So for me, it's definitely more of a feeling response, especially when I'm reading fiction. So when I'm reading a good fiction, signs that it is a good book is that I am really immersed, I'm really invested. It lingers after I've finished it, basically. Really, really great books, at least fiction-wise. Some of my favorites are ones that I still get really excited to talk about or to think about, or I just kind of have a little bit more of a book hangover after I finish them. I would say for nonfiction though, it's kind of more balanced, or maybe a little more of a thinking response. So a good nonfiction, I'm thinking about it afterwards a lot, but it in a way of, in the way that nonfiction tends to make you think. It's more educational, more informative, and I feel like I got something out of the book. I learned things I didn't already know, and so it's definitely more of a thinking response when it comes to nonfiction, but for fiction, it's definitely 100% feeling. The next question is, when you begin to form your review or rating, what is the first question you ask yourself? So this is a little bit hard for me to figure out, mostly because I ask myself a lot of different things when I'm trying to form my review and rating. But I think the very first or most important thing I ask myself is if my time spent reading that book was time well spent. Because if the answer to that is no, then it's not going to be a good review. One thing I did start this year was a reading journal, and mostly that was to write down my thoughts as I'm reading a book and kind of I kind of tab it at what percent I'm at or what page or whatever. And you can see more of the progress of how I'm feeling or thinking about a book. And it has helped me in terms of my reviews being more in depth. And I'm able to give a lot more substance as to why I disliked or liked a book. As before, I was definitely more of a, I liked it, I didn't like it kind of person. And I wouldn't really elaborate, or I didn't really keep track of why I felt that way, and I'm trying to get better at that. So I did start a reading journal this year. It has been great. If you are like me and you had a hard time kind of remembering why you felt a certain way about a book or putting that into actual substance words, then I highly recommend that you start a reading journal. The next question is, do you do star ratings? Why or why not? Yeah, I do. I find it just helps other people translate kind of how I'm feeling into a general idea of how I felt. So they don't have to read the whole review to really get all the details. They can just kind of see this is generally how I felt about a book. So the next question is, explain your star rating system. What does a good book get in your rating system? So I use the standard Goodreads 5-star system. I do engage in half stars, but because you can't use half stars on Goodreads, I'll usually put them in my the very top of my review if it's a half star. And that's when I'm just kind of feeling on the fence about the solid star rating. I don't use them that often. So what does a good book get in my system? A good book is a 4-star. An okay book, just kind of middle of the ground, this was fine, book is a 3-star. The next question is your star rating consistent, i.e. are all your 5-star books better than all your 4-star books? I'd say yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty consistent for the most part. Then the next question is, do you believe every book has its perfect reader? Does this contradict the idea that a book can be bad? I do believe that every book has its perfect reader. But I don't think that really contradicts the idea that a book can be objectively bad. I think there are things that will make a book objectively bad, like having, actually being full of errors and typos. Several ways a book can be objectively bad, but the most notable is just having writing errors, just being actually poorly written. There's some gray area with plot, whether or not having a poorly executed or developed plot is objectively bad. There are instances where it's so bad that it can be considered objectively bad, where it overshadows any enjoyment. But I would say, what is a poorly executed or or developed plot for me might not be the same for everybody else. So that is mostly subjective, depending on the severity. I would say there are other things like, you know, not liking the characters, not connecting with the characters, whatever, not liking certain elements or certain tropes. Those are all subjective. So I do think a book can be objectively bad. I do think that every book has its perfect reader. There are some people who, again, just like myself, okay, in terms of BookTube, I tend to be very different. I'm not like other girls. I don't want to be like that. But like, I tend to be a little bit more of a reading for enjoyment for the most part versus caring a lot about like a book being objectively good. I will overlook a lot of shit if I am just straight up enjoying the book. If it's entertaining, if I'm having a good time, if I'm, you know, liking it, I'm enjoying it. I will overlook a lot of things that are maybe considered objectively bad by other people. So yeah, I do think every book has its perfect reader. You know, I think some books that are more objectively bad struggle more to find their perfect reader. So that's my answer to that. The next question is, what book that you hated have you recommended? I don't hate a lot of books. And I can't say that I've recommended any that I actually like really detested. I will say I do recommend ACOTAR and Throne of Glass to like newbie readers quite a lot. Because to me, it was a big gateway into reading more. And now I'm like, it is not the best book I've ever read, but it opened the doors. It was very entertaining. It made me like reading again. So I do recommend that one. And it is a very loved and hated series. So that was my answer for this. Any Sarah J. Maas. The next question is, what makes a book good, bad, or great in your evaluation? Well, I kind of talked about that a little bit, but generally it goes something like this. So 1 star, horrible, hated it, probably one of the worst books I've ever read. I hated every minute of reading it, so bad. Or like so bad I refuse to finish it. A lot of my DNFs end up being 1 stars, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I have a personal rule. I know a lot of people are against star ratings or reviewing if you DNF, but sometimes it is necessary. My personal rule of thumb is anything 50% or above, and because this is my rule, I can break it whenever the fuck I feel like it. Anything 50% or above that I've read, I can give it a rating even if I DNF'd it, because I got, you know, most of the way through it before I gave up. A 2 star was not very good, but it wasn't like so bad I DNF'd the book, or I DNF'd it, but it had a lot of major flaws, it had a lot of icks, I just wasn't feeling it. But it's not like the worst thing in the world, like it had redeeming qualities. A 3 star is just generally good, middle of the road, good book. Okay, nothing major wrong with it, but not spectacular in my opinion. 4 stars, great. Really enjoyed this book. Didn't have any issues with it. If I did, it's like one minor issue. Probably one of my favorites. I give a lot of 4 stars. A lot of 4 stars. And 5 books is like one of the best books I've ever read. I had a book hangover after reading this book. Absolutely loved it. Obsessed with it. A fan. Then the next question is, when evaluating the quality of a book, do you have specific criteria or aspects of the book, such as character development, that you consider? Does this change if you're writing an in-depth review versus just thinking about the book for enjoyment? So for the most part, like I said, I am a for the enjoyment reader. I can honestly say that my version of writing an in-depth review is not much different than writing a review for just enjoyment. When I'm evaluating a book, I have a couple of things that tend to make or break a book for me. And those are pacing, plot holes, weak, annoying, or two-dimensional characters. Don't even get me started. And how the author executed tropes. So not really... There are certain tropes that I like that tend to be annoying or more frequently annoying to me, but I will say there are tropes that I generally don't like, but if they're done well or done differently than they normally are, and it's kind of like a spin on that, it's not like the way everybody has done the trope, then I enjoy it. The next question is, do you consider star ratings or average ratings when choosing books to read or add to your TBR? I definitely do. yeah, especially if the book's been going viral online, I will look at reviews. I look at reviews usually before I even add it to my Goodreads TBR, because if it's like anything lower than a 3, I'm probably gonna be like, no. Yeah, so, but a lot of people won't add anything like below a 4-star. I will, because to me a 3 is like very middle. Like if something is a 3.75 or a 3.5 on Goodreads, I'm like, okay, so this is like very divisive in my opinion. So I will still add it and I will still read it if it sounds interesting to me. And then the next question is, who on BookTube does reliable and interesting reviews of books that you know you can use to decide if a book is for you or not? What makes the review so good? So I will say I don't watch a lot of reviews or wrap-ups. There are certain people I will watch their wrap-ups, Joshana being one of them, because she's very concise, and I think gives just the right amount of information for me to decide if I want to read something. But generally, I tend to watch hauls more, especially like Peruse Project, where she gives a little summary with her haul, because I just want to hear about a book in terms of like, am I interested? Read me the synopsis, essentially, and then I'll decide if I want to read it. I don't really want to listen to somebody's review and decide if I want to read it, because somebody else's opinion of a book doesn't really influence me that much. So yeah, I would rather hear what it's about than how you felt about it. So I don't watch a lot of wrap-ups or reviews. The people I do watch, I tend to prefer a spoiler-free one, but I just generally want to know like how you felt about it, and don't give me way too much information. When I do watch books where people, or when I do watch videos where people talk about the books that they're reading, it's reading vlogs. I like to kind of go along, mixes it up a little bit. It's not so much information all at once, and you kind of get to see their opinions and their feelings develop, which I really enjoy. It's more like interactive, it feels. But I don't watch a lot of wrap-ups or reviews, just being honest. So then it's basically like asking, do those booktubers use different language than you to evaluate and review the overall quality of a book? I will say a lot of people that I watch and I do enjoy use more complex systems than I do. Some people like track their books on like Excel spreadsheets and shit, and I tried one year, but I don't do that anymore. They have a lot of criteria that they use to review a book. I don't. Like I said, I'm very much an enjoyment reader. So as long as there's no like glaring issues, I'm very easy to please in terms of the books that I like. I tend to just wing it more, go off of my feelings, kind of intuitively reflect and review a book. A lot of people that I do enjoy their reviews and their wrap-ups and stuff, they are a lot more complex and like sophisticated when they do it, but I am just a simple girl over here. So that is the ratings and reviews tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Let me know how you feel about these types of questions down in the comments, and if you have any input on my rating and review system. And as always, subscribe if you would like to see more from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.